Facebook, coming in YouTube, getting ready to start my show called Jimmy Rants over on Instagram. I am right on time for 11 a.m. So we need to get this show on the road. Hello, Johanna. I see you over there on Facebook. So come on in. It is Ask Me Anything. So we'll cover your questions when the time comes. And if you guys are ready, here we go. What's up, Norma? Oh, you changed your logo, Norma. That's why I didn't immediately recognize you. Hello, Faye. We're getting started on Jimmy Rants. Here we go, you guys. It's Ask Me Anything here today on Jimmy Rants, so ask me anything you want. That's what we do here on Fridays on Jimmy Rants. Click on that little box down there in the corner. It'll take you straight to IGTV for today's episode. JimmyRants.com is the website, and as always, you can engage live in the content. Go follow me. I'm over on Instagram. I'm at Living Low Carb Man, LIVINLOWCARBMAN. Once you're there, engage live. We are here Monday through Friday faithfully at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So it's always good to see you here on Jimmy Rants on Instagram Live. We also simulcast over here on my Facebook page where I see my friend Mandy Hale just came in. What's up, Mandy? And Kira, one of my regulars, came in. Thank you guys for being here today. I also see some of my familiar faces over there on YouTube. Thank you all for being here today on Jimmy Rants. If you missed the live, you can watch it on replay over on IGTV right here on Instagram. We also put the replay up over on YouTube. If you type in a keyword Jimmy Rants, you will find the show. And then finally, pop on over to the official website for this show. It is JimmyRants.com. And while you're there, you can see all the past episodes. But we also have a way for you to contribute and help me keep this show on the air. We have both a Patreon link and a PayPal link, and any donation of any amount would be greatly appreciated. Okay, you guys, happy Friday. And on Friday, my regulars know this already, but if you're new to Jimmy Rants, on Friday, I basically open the floor to let you ask me anything. I know a lot of people, they do ask me anything for every episode that they do, and that's cool if they want to just keep, having people ask questions. There's always questions. What's funny about some of those accounts is they end up answering the same questions every single day. So what I like to do Monday through Thursday is do specific targeted topic type of one so that then you can go back and reference it in the past episode, either on IGTV, on YouTube, or on JimmyRants.com. If I've talked about cholesterol, then I've got episodes just about cholesterol that you can find the answers you're looking for. Then on Fridays, if there's any lingering questions, people ask me anything. That's what we do here on Fridays. So it's a format that works pretty well for me, and I like doing it that way as well. But thank you for being here. So yes, it is Ask Me Anything. So literally get your questions in, and when the time comes, I will be coming to you first to get your questions after I read some headlines that caught my attention, along with a few questions that came in ahead of time on the Instagram stories. If you're brand new to the show, on Thursday, right after I'm done with Jimmy Rants, in that afternoon, and you follow me on Instagram, I'm putting up a little story that has a box that literally says, ask me anything, and you can type in your question. So if you're not able to ever watch live on Friday, or if you just want to get your question in ahead of time, I do go to those before I go to the live ones. So go ahead and ask that question there. But let's get to some headlines. And I have to start with the thing that is all over the media today. And it's Donald and Melania Trump have tested positive for COVID-19. And of course, this story got out there. I wake up early in the morning, and so one of the first things I saw when I woke up on the newswire was this story. Around 1 a.m. they made the announcement that they had contracted COVID-19. And of course, the usual things that follow these kind of events with political figures, government figures, has happened. The ugliness and depravity of humankind has come out in full force. And I wrote a post about this today, so if you haven't read my post about it all across social media, go read it, because I feel like we have lost a bit of ourselves when we start wishing someone gets seriously ill, and when we wish someone to die. And to me, humanity is above all of these little petty differences we have with one another. Okay, great. You have a different set of philosophies about life. You have a different set of views that guide you from another person. Just because you think and act differently than someone else does not make them right, and does not make you right and them wrong. We just need to honor the differences that we have. And of course, this is not new. I had a lot of people that said, well, the current occupant of the White House is the reason why people act this way. I'm like, are you kidding me? I've been around 15 plus years on the internet, and from the very start of being online, the vitriol and hatred and ugliness has been there long before there was ever a President Trump. So it's kind of interesting to me that there's such hatred and ugliness towards the president that people can't see past that and think, okay, he's still a human being. He doesn't deserve death threats, no matter what you believe about him. I don't want anything bad to happen to President Trump or to Joe Biden or any human being. Like, guys, the moment we lose that life is precious, the moment we forget that we are all human beings first before anything else, if we lose that, guys, we're at the tipping point. If you tip over the edge and you think some lives are worth fighting for and others aren't, we're losing humanity. And I'll give you an example of this. This just came in right before I got on the air. This was posted. I'm sorry, the rest of you can't see it. I'm going to say it out loud. But this comment right here was posted in response to my article today, where they compared him to Hitler and Saddam Hussein, and basically said, would you wish them a speedy recovery? And then they go into a diatribe about all the things they think are bad about the president. And so I don't wish them well, was how he ended it. Now, to me, that kind of thing is exactly what is wrong. Again, no matter what your political belief, no matter what you think about the President of the United States or anybody else for that matter, that is unacceptable. That, I think, is a symptom of exactly what I'm talking about here. When you forget about who you are and forget about that there is a human being behind that title, behind that demon that you've created, is when we lose humanity. And if we lose humanity, guys, there's no going back. There's no moving forward. We have to tap into a part of ourselves that unites us. And the thing that unites us is we're all a part of the human race. We're all a part of humankind. And if we all rally around what we are in common with and less about what we disagree with, then the kind of vitriol we're seeing today about the President of the United States having COVID-19 would not be happening. But again, that's not the way the world works, unfortunately. So let's get to the next one. This was interesting. So the Department of Education and Health in the state of New York City has issued this letter. I've actually got a copy of the letter that they sent out to schools and the parents of the students. Dear families, we're so excited to welcome you back in our school building as we begin the new school year. The health and safety of all students is blah, 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 blah. So they're basically putting in place all of these things related to COVID-19. And so in order for us to administer a COVID-19 test to your child that is quick, easy, and safe, we'll use a small Q-tip size swab that goes up their nose, and it's possible that later this year we'll do a saliva test. We strongly encourage you to sign and return the consent form to let us test your child as soon as possible. So they'll do monthly testing randomly of staff and students to make sure that everybody is safe with COVID-19. And if your child is tested, we will let you know, and then we'll tell you how you get your results within 48 to 72 hours. Anybody else, a parent out there, if you got a letter like this, would you consent to it? I just find it disturbing. I get they're trying to keep kids safe and all the everything that else that's gone on with COVID-19, but would you consent to that? I don't know. I don't know how many parents would. Now, there's certain ones, well, okay, sure, whatever. But you're going to like stick or put your kid through that? Like, I think about a kindergartner. having a swab rammed up their nose. Are they going to be okay with that? I don't know. I don't know. It's just one of those things that I think about the ramifications from, again, on a human level related to the last story. On a human level, do we want kids to go through perhaps some of the trauma that comes with this? And that's in addition to sticking masks over their face so they can't see facial expressions. A lot of kids learning of interactions with other human beings is seeing human expression on the face. And I've talked about this before. What are the unintended consequences of covering up everybody's faces? And this is one of them. And for kids, and Debbie over here says, nope, never would I do that to my child. And that's the thing, you guys. They're putting these kids through this. And through all of the everything with coronavirus, I worry about what all of this is doing to the next generation, to all those kids. Think about the high school students that never got to have their graduation, maybe didn't have a prom. Like, these are rites of passages into society, becoming an adult. And then the young kids that don't know what's going on, that they just know they're forced to put on a mask and stay away from their friends, and they're getting lonely and isolated from their friends because they can't touch them and hug them and all the things anymore. Despite the fact that kids have a 99.9997% chance of surviving this thing, it's sad to watch what is happening to our society. All under the guise of protecting your public health. Somebody forgot that mental health is just as much a part of protecting public health as anything. Yeah. All right, so let's get to a funny one. Subway bread has now been classified as not bread, according to Ireland's Supreme Court. They ruled that bread sold by the fast food chain Subway contains way too much sugar for it to ever be legally defined as bread. Isn't that funny? So the ruling came because there was a tax dispute brought by a Irish Subway franchisee who argued that some of the takeaways were not liable for value-added tax. A panel of judges rejected it, ruling that the bread sold by Subway has too much sugar, that it can no longer be categorized as the staple food, which is not taxed. So because it's not bread, it's taxable. But if it was bread, it would not be taxable. There is no dispute that the bread supplied by Subway in its heated sandwiches has a sugar content 10% the weight of the flour in the dough. And bread is defined as cannot exceed 2%. The law makes a distinction between bread as a staple food and other baked goods, which are confectionery or fancy baked goods. So apparently the Subway roll, and I've had Subway sandwiches many times over the years, and they've always been, sweet, but not overly so. But I guess it's sweet enough to no longer be considered bread. So isn't that interesting? So when you go into a Subway shop, you say, okay, I would like to get a cold cut combo on my cake, my whole wheat cake. I just found that headline hilarious. Subway bread isn't bread. So if you've had a Subway sandwich, you've eaten cake with a bunch of cold cuts, cheese and mustard. Hold the onions because it makes your breath stink. All right, next thing. New limits are urged on Americans' sugar consumption amid rising obesity concerns. So we know all year long that the Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee has been working on the new dietary guidelines for 2020. And in those guidelines, they're going to set forth new recommendations about how we should eat. Well, one of the things that they're changing is that Americans should get no more than 6% of their daily calories from added sugar, a federal committee recommends, down from the current 10%. Well, that's not even total sugar intake. This is added sugar. In other words, all the things that are not natural in the food you eat. They're not even addressing the natural sugars that would be in lots of fruits. They're not addressing that at all. They're saying on top of that, so any junk food, you want junk food, candy, kind of thing, to make up even 6% of your diet? that seems kind of high and it's crazy. But this is one of the recommendations. And of course, they say, well, it's going to help with type 2 diabetes and obesity and heart disease and cancer. All of them make you more at risk for COVID-19, which is all true. But telling people to eat 6% of their diet as junk food, candy, Coke, whatever you want to fill in the blank. The new limit applies only to the added sugars, not to the natural sugars. And that's the problem with some of these recommendations, you guys. We know from previous studies, a full 87% of the American population has some degree on that spectrum of insulin resistance. And if 87% of people are on that spectrum of insulin resistance, and we know by the very definition of that means they don't handle sugar well, why are we telling them to add any sugar, natural or added? You see why they keep putting us down this road of continued disease with the very recommendations that they do? Yes, it sounds good on paper. Oh, keep your added sugars just at 6% now. They thought they were proud in 5 years ago when they said just 10% extra added sugar. Ooh, we've done better now. We realize we need to bring it down a little bit. And unless you cut out sugar completely, pretty much from your diet, and you're insulin resistant, especially if you're the worst kind of insulin resistant, you're actually a type 2 diabetic, you don't need to be having that at all. But they don't give those recommendations. The creepy crawliness towards a low-carb ketogenic diet with the dietary guidelines, the creepy crawliness at this rate, we won't reach it until 2070. And by then, most of us will be either gone or very old. What will I be in 2070? 99. I'll be 98, 99.
Well, back here with another episode of Junior Rants. Let me catch my breath. I got a drinking problem. I don't know a drinking problem.
You guys know I'm a goofball, and I love every minute of being a goofball. Next headline, the class of COVID is getting a truly terrible deal. And so it's a whole story here. This was in Bloomberg.com. Universities may have little choice other than to go completely remote, but it's forcing many to question the current model of higher education. So I'm not going to read this. It's a little bit of a long story, but the long and short of it is they're questioning if they should be charging just as much money for the tuition for these students who are doing remote learning. I did a story about 2 months ago when they were first starting about coming back to school, that Harvard school was pretty much the same price. And some of these other schools, they gave you a little bit of a discount, but not much. And so if you didn't get much of a discount and you're online learning, so they're saying, what's the point of having a campus? Some of it is the prestige. Obviously, with those that are into college sports, they have football teams that are successful. That's a part of it. And of course, it's also the culture of everybody being together and the fraternities and sororities and all that part of college life. And plus, getting the heck away from your parents. That was my favorite part of going to college, was just getting the heck away from my abuser. But they're starting to question the business model of colleges, and that COVID-19 may be a turning point in how people are educated. Because if they can do it remotely and do it successfully remotely, does that lead to a different business model for how they educate? Does that lead to the shutting down of campuses and it's all virtual now, and that all your classings become virtual, and thus the costs of going to college will ostensibly come down, which then makes it more accessible to other people? These are all questions that COVID-19 is kind of pushing the envelope on. It's going to be something interesting to watch in the coming years to see how kids are educated. So if you've got a elementary or middle school kid, maybe by the time they become college aged, we might be seeing that online learning is a lot more normal than it is today. Now, there's a few places online that were online before, but this is going to really kind of ramp up some of those efforts. So something to watch. Then the final one, if you're just joining us, this is Ask Me Anything on Jimmy Rants today. So literally ask me any question you want. Go ahead and get your questions coming in down there. And when the time comes, I will come to you and answer your questions. But I'm on the very last headline. This one cracked me up, you guys. This was out of Science Magazine. Eating a tiny bit of your mom's poop could give C-section babies an immune primer. I'm going to let you get over the ew part of that headline. I will give you a bit of background personally. No, I don't eat my mom's poop. That would be gross. But I was a C-section baby. So when I was born, they had to go in and cut me out, basically. So if you don't know, one of the benefits of going through the vaginal canal as a baby is as you're coming out, that is populating the baby's body with the microbiome, which then gets into the system and then gets into their gut, and then you have a healthy baby, healthy system ready to take on the world. Well, if you're a C-section baby, you miss that step altogether. So what they're suggesting in this study is babies that aren't born vaginally need to have the gut health put into them. And the only way they can do it, because it's almost absent in C-section babies, the only way they can think to get it done is for mom to poop and then feed that poop to their kids. Now, I want to know, how many of you moms that have a C-section would be willing to get a fecal sample, scoop it out, and say, to your baby? Now, I don't know how they'll do it. They obviously have to make it edible because kids will, or whatever, even adults, obviously. But they had 7 women that had pathogen-free samples after they gave birth. The researchers mixed in some of their fecal matter that had been diluted into their breast milk. So they mix it together with the breast milk and then feed it to the babies. And they said within 12 weeks, the microbiome of the babies was perfectly normal. They had all the strands that they were looking for. But I just found that really interesting. And of course, you know, to a lay person, you know, I remember the first time I ever heard of fecal transplant. So if you're not familiar with that, it's where you have messed up microbiome. And so you take healthy microbiome from someone else's fecal matter. I remember interviewing this guy, Art Ayers, on the Living La Vida Low Carb show many years ago about this, maybe like 2008-9. And he said, oh yeah, and he's a researcher, so he didn't realize the comedic value of what he was saying. He's like, oh yeah, you just take the fecal matter and you throw it in a blender and mix in some water and this, and I'm just like laughing my head off. And he's like, oh, well, I never stopped to think about the comedic value of that, but yes, ha ha ha. He was very formal anyway. Sometimes I have to loosen people up on my show, but I am the layperson who does keep it real, and eating poop or having poop squirted up your butt as a fecal transplant is kind of funny. So, but it does work, and it's very interesting. So, fecal matter, you guys, pretty interesting. Alrighty, it is your time, you guys, to give me your questions. So please, this is Ask Me Anything. Ask me anything. Get your questions in down there. When the time comes, I will come to you. But I did have a few come in ahead of time, so let's get to those first. This was an interesting one. Would you ever attend a peaceful protest against the COVID restrictions? I mean, I'm not one of these people that's, you know, rah, go protest. I just live my life. I suppose if it got to the point where what's happening in Victoria, Australia, was happening here in America, they have them locked down in their homes 23 hours a day. And 1 hour they're allowed to get out, but they have to wear a mask when they're outside and walking around just to get the breath of fresh air, which I don't know how you get a breath of fresh air wearing a mask on your face. But anyway, and exercise and whatever else you need to do when you're out and about. If that was going on, I probably would be a part of the dissident crowd that would protest that. Now, I wouldn't be, you know, belligerent or anything, but it would be definitely a peaceful protest. I'm lucky here in Spartanburg, South Carolina, other than a few businesses that have been like Costco. I went to Costco the other day. They wouldn't even let me in. Then I went to customer service. And I'm like, okay, what can I do? I'm a member here, but I can't shop. I really don't want to wear a mask, da da da. And they're like, well, we do have this service that you can have it delivered to you, kind of like DoorDash. And so I looked up the service. It's like $5. And I can shop on an app and get my stuff delivered right to my door. So there are options available to get around. So pretty much my life hasn't changed a whole lot here. But if it did get bad, absolutely, I would be a part of a peaceful demonstration, because I think some of the measures that have been put into place in various places has been an overreach. But thank you for that question. Next one, keto to carnivore blood work still shows that I have high inflammation and high A1C. So it's a little bit ambiguous what was written here. So I don't know what high means. Okay, I don't know what inflammatory markers were run. I don't know what the actual numbers are. And then finally, I don't know how long you've been eating this way. All of those things are relevant. But in general, you got to give your body time to heal. And you've got to take into account that it's not always just your diet that's impacting those numbers. So if you have high inflammation levels, do you have an autoimmune condition? Do you have something else exacerbating perhaps the inflammatory pathways? And plus, if you just started eating carnivore a couple weeks ago, guess what? Your inflammation markers ain't gonna come down. But if you've been doing it for a year, your inflammation should have come down. If you've been doing carnivore consistently and sticking with maybe just meat and salt, perhaps that's sometimes the error that people make. I eat carnivore. I had 2 ribeyes for breakfast just about an hour and a half, 2 hours ago. And then I had, I'm going to have 8 of my backyard chicken eggs cooked in grass-fed butter. Now, other than the butter, that's totally animal-based foods that are dairy-free. So maybe remove the dairy, maybe just stick with meat and water for a period of time and see how that does. But I mean, don't fret about it. If you've only had one measurement of inflammation and one measurement of A1C since you've gone carnivore, give it some more time. I think sometimes we put all of our eggs in the basket of one particular reading, and we think that that's the way it always is at all times. Even right after you get that blood work done that day, if you tested 3 hours later, it would be different. So don't put your eggs in the basket. Pay attention to how you feel. Realize that you're doing good things for your body and not bad things. But thank you for that question. Oh, this is a funny one. And this is a guy friend of mine. How'd you get to be so sweet without sugar? I try to have a demeanor that is one of kindness, love, and compassion for other people. I hope that shines through loud and clear. I think we live in a world today with a bunch of people that are sourpuss, quite frankly, and that everything about life is not worth living, and that there are people in the world that just would love nothing more than to just sulk in their ugliness and negativity until the day they die. And I would argue you're going to die a lot sooner if you do that. All the studies that I've read say the people that are the happiest, the people that have the most giving spirit about them, the people that actually love other people, they tend to live the longest. And so I take that philosophy to heart. And I'm testing that theory, I suppose, because when you love people, it's almost impossible to have a hateful thought in your head and want to take any action towards them in a negative way. Even the people that oppose me, and I'm cool with that. Like, if you don't like me, it's all good. You don't have to like me to respect me and to appreciate what I do. And if you don't, then I'm not a part of your tribe and move on. It's no big deal. But I try to keep that demeanor of positivity and happiness and energy because I think you, the people that follow me, deserve that. All right, and the last one, how do you keep the momentum going for creating content? It's hard to start and keep on. Yeah, people ask me this all the time because I'm a heavy content provider. If you follow my work, you know that I do Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. I do this live show called Jimmy Rants. I also do 3 podcasts a week on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Living La Vida Low Carb Show and Real Talk. And so I'm constantly interviewing people. I'm doing daily posts all across social media, and sometimes meaningful posts that I put time and effort into. And people are like, how do you keep coming up with all these guests, all these ideas? And all I can tell you is I live and breathe this work. And I'm constantly looking to hone my craft. And I keep my ear to the ground. Like I'm paying attention to what people are talking about, what people are saying, and then I put my own Jimmy spin on it. In fact, that's what has helped me with like all these books I've written. Like I didn't just like say, oh, I want to write a book. It's been oozing in my head for years before these books come out. And that's just the way my brain works. And so you should see, you guys, the amount of content I put out is voluminous, but you should see the stuff I don't write about, that I don't do a Jimmy Rants about, I don't interview about. It's so much. Like, I don't have a want for topics to talk about. I have plenty of that. Parsing down what matters the most is my problem. And so it's a good problem to have, but I keep the momentum going because I have a passion for it still. And I always have something to say about issues that I'm passionate about. And that would be my encouragement to anyone else trying to do content. If it doesn't have you jazzed, let it go. If it's something that you're passionate about and you have lots to say about, run with it. And if that means you run with it in multiple ways and maybe several different times, then go for it. Like I've been talking a lot about the childhood trauma stuff this year. I've had many guests on my podcast talking about it, and I've got another one coming up next week. Carmen Hunter on Thursday on Real Talk will be talking about some of this, and I talk about it in my content. That's an example of something that I have stuff to say about, and there's different angles of it. You don't necessarily have to shoot your wad all in one post, all in one podcast, all in one video. So that's my secret. Just stick with what's passionate for you and then do those things. But thank you for your question. And now we are all out of the questions that came in ahead of time. So be sure, I'm coming to you guys now. So first on Instagram, then over to Facebook, finally over to YouTube. Get me your questions. This is Ask Me Anything here today on Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website. Let's see what you have to say. A.K. Shaw says it's so wrong saying anything bad about anyone. We can see the heart of people. Glad it's not everyone doing it. Yeah, and the problem is the people who are doing it, that's hearkening back to what I talked about with the president getting COVID-19 and now all these people wishing him dead. It's disgusting what's happening, but not everybody's doing it. The problem is it's the perception of it. Because if you go on Twitter today, and I recommend you don't go on Twitter today, and Facebook is just as bad. Instagram, I hadn't seen it quite as bad. I'm sure they're bad on YouTube as well. But Facebook, oh my gosh. Like, it's just a hellhole today with all the ugliness that's out there. And it may seem like everybody's saying this. It's not everybody. I would say you're looking at a percentage of the population. Plus, of course, because of who it is and because we're so close to an election, there's going to be that element in this as well. If this was a non-election year, it might not be the same, but emotions are riding high. People's like energies are all focused on what they want to see accomplished. And unfortunately, that means they're going to say some vile things that probably they're going to regret later. Joshua says they could do a vaginal swab right after delivery. That's interesting too. Yeah, if the baby doesn't go through the vaginal canal to get all the microbiome, that's true. You could do the swab and then rub all of the baby. That's true. That's true. All right, thank you, Instagram. Oh, did I get another question come in? Oh, Joshua, you snuck it in, but I think it cut it off. I'll try to see it. Okay, it didn't cut it. Oh, it did cut it off. I knew I was reading it like in the real small print. I'm like, oh, that got cut off. When you are doing research, when do you feel you've done enough? People are challenging me. Oh, research on a topic. So when is it enough research when you're researching a topic? I think when you feel like you have the science on your side, I'll give you a perfect example. So my fellow health podcaster, Sean Stevenson, go look him up, you guys. Here on Instagram, he is at Sean Model, ShawnModel. And he is a brilliant podcaster. He's got this voice. Like, I don't have a podcasting voice near like him and Abel James and some of my other buddies in this. I just know how to talk, but his voice is incredible. But anyway, he did a video the other day looking at all the randomized controlled trials involving mask wearing. And he started looking at some of the research that's out there that is related to mask wearing that's being used to make everybody wear a mask. And a lot of those studies are observational studies, which are not nearly as good as the randomized controlled trials. So what Sean did was very methodically, here's the randomized controlled trials that we have showing that the efficacy of masks against a virus is not very good. And he goes through it. He does a nice little YouTube video. Go look it up over on his page. And so that's an example of someone who did enough research to be able to make his point. Is it an exhaustive research? Could he have found more? Probably. But if you have research to support what you're saying, that's pretty much what you need. And of course, that's people that are being responsible. There's a lot of people that make claims, especially on the internet, especially on social media. They're just making claims without any support. Anytime somebody makes a claim, you've got to ask them, okay, where did you get that from? And then if they say, well, I just heard it, that's not good enough. So make sure you can back up the things that you say. That would be my answer to your question. All right, thank you, Instagram. We're going to pop over here now to my Facebook channel. What is up, Facebook? Welcome to Ask Me Anything. Mandy says, oh my gosh, people are so ugly, talking about the ugly comments being made about the president. I dislike people, but I still respect them. Yeah, I mean, I was reading comment after comment after comment after comment this morning, and it was breaking my heart because I don't think any other human being should ever be talked to and talked about in the way that I was reading. And I mean, this is like people that wished him dead. And I'm going, okay, disagreement with somebody is one thing, but disagreement to the level that you would want to take their life, take away their humanity, that crosses the line. Crosses the line. There are some people, politically and otherwise, that I have vehemently disagreed with over the years, but never in my life would I ever want them dead. Like, you have to be a really special kind of stupid and a special kind of monster, as I said in my post today, to want some other human life to be dead. Not me. All life is precious and should be honored and respected and loved. That is what unites us. You know, I know there's a lot of division in 2020 about a lot of things, but the one thing that unites every single one of us is our humanity. And if we get back to humanity and loving and respecting and honoring one another for our humanity, we could turn this around. The problem is that Pandora's box is wide open right now, and people are walking through it very proudly, wishing death upon the president. It's disgusting. So yes, respect them, but not necessarily like them. I'm with you, Mandy. Norma says, what is your opinion on reverse dieting? So my friends Robert and Crystal Sykes talk about reverse dieting a lot. It's where you slowly, incrementally raise your calories. And so it's obviously with the purposes of building up muscle and stuff like that. So I think it's a good concept. The incrementalism of it, I think, is more helpful because if you go from a 1,600 calorie diet and you're trying to get to 2,100, you don't want to go straight to 2,100 or you will gain fat. But if you go 1,600 and then the next week 1,650, and then the next week 1,700, and then the next week 1,750, and you do this incremental, then by the time you get to 2,100, your body has adapted to it. So I think it's a great idea if the purposes of it is to get you back to an adequate calorie, either for the muscle building purposes or otherwise. And so I like it. I think it's a good idea. Plus, it just makes sure you get the adequate calories. That's important. Mandy says, I have a kindergartner and I'd hate to have them test them, but if I had to, they better hand me the swab. I've seen how brutal those technicians get. Yeah, I've seen them where they just shove them way up there and they don't care who you are. And of course, you're going to cry a little bit. And I've been told it burns, and yeah, it's brutal. I don't think they should do it without the parent present, honestly. I know they tell the parent, oh, we swabbed your kid, but they don't have you there, and that's a problem. Mandy says, with the Subway story, that's not even mentioning the honey oat. Yeah, honey oat probably has a lot more than 10% sugar. If just the plain bread, think about Subway's rolls, they now have said is not bread because it has 10% of its content as sugar. So they don't call it bread anymore. But then, yeah, I mean, you make a good point. The honey flavor and the other sweet ones, those probably have 25% sugar. It's pretty rough. Debbie says, I swear they really do want us to be sick. Watching my dad go through the medical world with his insulin resistance and complications is crazy. I get so upset at the things they tell him. Yeah. They don't want to acknowledge the real problem in our diets as it relates to insulin resistance is sugar. They don't want to admit that. And I don't know if it's influence of big food companies. I don't know what would stop them from wanting to get that under control. But that's from the news story I mentioned earlier about 6% of your calories should come, no more than 6% from added sugars in the dietary guidelines. That's what they're going to recommend. And I'm thinking 6% of added sugars? That's not even counting the natural sugars. That's a lot of sugar in the diet. Why not 0? No more than 0% of added sugars. Now, yeah, every once in a while you'll have some added sugars, but it's no big deal every once in a while. The problem is when you give people permission that 6% of their calories coming from added sugar. Let's do the math. Let's say you eat a 2,000 calorie diet, okay? 6% of 2,000 calories. 6 times 2 is 12. That's 120 calories worth of sugar, added sugar, not just total sugar, added on top of anything else. So 6%, 120 calories. 120 divided by 4, which is the number of calories per gram of carbohydrate. 120 divided by 4 is 30 grams of added sugar. Well, we need 30 grams of added sugar in our bodies for. And again, I'm going to remind you, that's on top of the natural sugars in the food you eat. That's also on top of the total number of carbohydrates from starches and grains and all these other things that turn to sugar in the body. So what they're doing is they're saying, okay, we're going to take this little scoop of water out of the ocean. That's the 6% added sugars. We're not eating those anymore, but now you still have a whole lot of contamination to your blood sugar from the carbs you're eating, from the natural sugars you're eating. It's just not going to do any good. And then people are going to go, well, wait a minute, I cut down my intake of added sugars to just 6%. Why am I still struggling in my weight and my blood sugar and all the rest? And it's no question why. It makes sense. So talking about the fecal matter, feeding your kid the fecal matter, Debbie says, it gives a whole new meaning to laced brownies. Yes. I knew somebody was going to take that and make a joke out of it. Pam says, so after being keto for 2 years, would you suggest switching it up to strict carnivore to get the remaining 30 pounds off, or is carnivore mainly for health marker improvement? Carnivore is pretty powerful for all of those things. I found a lot of people that they switch from keto to carnivore. It kind of takes away the temptation of some of the keto dessert type items and things like that. So it could be something to go on for a period of time just to see how you're doing. I mean, if your goal is to lose 30 pounds, it certainly should lower inflammation, lower insulin, and all the things that it does a little bit more. It's worth a shot, Pam, just to see how you do. And of course, you still get to eat delicious food. So it's not like you're going to a much more, yes, it's restrictive, more restrictive than keto, but it's not like it's less desirable on the tongue. So I'd say give it a go. You might be surprised. And I would also say if you're going to try that, try it with meat and water just to really give it a go. Don't do a confounding variable of dairy, even though you might handle dairy well. Don't add in like bulletproof coffee and all this kind of stuff. Just meat and water. Maybe some eggs, but meat and water and eggs. See how you do. You might be surprised how well it works. What is Sean's page again? So Sean Model over on Instagram for Sean Stevenson. His podcast is called the Model Health Podcast. If you go on YouTube, he actually has a YouTube channel, Model Health Show. But you put in Sean Stevenson, Model Health, you'll find him over on YouTube. He also has a podcast, really excellent podcast. All right, thank you, Facebook. Now let's pop over here now to my YouTube channel. I'm going to move you to the side a little bit, Instagram, so I can see YouTube. What's up, YouTube? Hope you guys are doing well today. Thanks for being here today on Ask Me Anything. Craig says, no question, but I need your reaction to the Weight Watchers commercial where the woman is so excited that potatoes and a whole wheat pasta are 0 points on her newly customized plan. I think you know my reaction, Craig. I think Weight Watchers is a dying breed, and they know it. All they have left. I remember when Oprah Winfrey became a part of their, investment people, and she came on board as a spokeswoman. The very first commercial they cut with Oprah Winfrey was where she was talking about holding bread and go, "I love bread." And of course, all the keto people said, "Yeah, we know." That's mean. But at the same time, it's just predicated still on the low fat, healthy whole grains, just all the nonsense that has been out there for years. And to me, if you're ignoring what the science is showing about nutrition, which has changed radically from the time Weight Watchers began all the way to today, if they don't adapt with the times, they're going to be left behind. And we're already seeing it with Jenny Craig and some other companies. They're already making kind of low carb keto options available. And when Slim Fast came out with their keto line after years of being this high fiber, low fat thing, I think they're seeing the handwriting on the wall. So that doesn't surprise me that they're just going down swinging, but that's the thing, they're going down. And I don't think there's anything that will stop them from going down unless they wisen up and give people some options. But thank you for that question, Craig. Johanna likes my 99-year-old Jimmy.
Hey y'all, we're back here. This episode 1947, and I hope I stay alive long enough to reach 2,000 episodes. Oh.
Hey, if I live to 99, you guys can laugh at me all you want. But that was fun. Harpsy says, on the good side, I have also heard many who respect life as you do. Yes, they do. You have to. If those of us who respect life don't stand up for life, we're not going to have a life left. That's true. Christy says, do you think it's better to slowly cut out carbs for someone switching from the SAD diet or quitting cold turkey? That is a great question, Christy. And of course, I'll give you my own example. When I switched over from eating a junk food, crappy garbage type of diet in 2003, and then starting January 1st, 2004 on the Atkins diet, I later counted the carbs. I was eating about 1,600 grams of carbs a day, mostly from the Coca-Cola that I was drinking, 16 cans of those a day, and then the junk food and all the rest. And then started Atkins on 20 total grams of carbohydrate. I'm not gonna lie, that was tough. That was a pill to have to go through that. But to me, I think, okay, if you had that much of a disparity, it's probably good to just go right down to 20. Deal with that pain for a few days, and then you're beyond it. But give that person the expectation and the knowledge that they're going to go through some pain with that. Now, if you're somebody who's a little more normal in your eating and only had like maybe 200, 250 grams of carbs, and then you try to go to keto, all right, maybe you start at your baseline of what your diet was and come down, but not all the way down yet. Maybe you start, if you're 250 grams of carbs, start at 150 grams of carbs, and then give that a go for like a couple weeks, then bring that down to 100 grams of carbs for a couple weeks. And then a couple weeks later, bring that down to 50 grams of carbs. And all the while paying attention to how you feel and everything. I think over time you would see that would be good. So I guess it depends on your starting point. If you were over 1,000 grams of carbohydrate like I was, probably a good idea just to go cold turkey, because there's no way you're going to incrementally go down from that and get to where you need to get soon enough. So I hope that answers your question, and thank you for that question. And thank you, Facebook. We're going to come back over here now to my Instagram page. I saw a couple more questions come in. Looks like my friend Rachel has a question. My friend was prescribed an antibiotic for getting stitches on his arm. He doesn't want to take them. There is no infection. It's just a mandatory prevention. I thought antibiotics aren't preventative. Well, they give antibiotics, Rachel, like Tic Tacs. And I don't blame your friend, by the way, very smart friend. You have smart friends in your life, Rachel, for not taking it with no obvious infection. And of course, doctors are like, well, you should take it anyway. It's just a precaution. I'm going, okay, but do you know it's killing everything in my gut, right? The times that I have had to take an antibiotic, which since I've been low carb, over the past 15 years, I've had to do 2 rounds of an antibiotic. Once when I had my teeth done. Remember the other day I told you I went to the holistic dentist and I had all the root canals cleaned up and all the mercury put out. I had to go on an antibiotic for that. And then the other time was I had a urinary tract infection and I had to go on an antibiotic for that. Those are the 2 times. And both times I took great pains in between taking the antibiotic with repopulating with a probiotic. And then, of course, at the end of it, really, really kind of ramping up the probiotic there for a period of time just to make sure I could repopulate. It's a tough thing because it does pretty much eradicate all of your gut health when you take those antibiotics. That's what it does. It kills the bad bugs, but it also kills the good bugs. And so they are lifesavers for people that do have the need for them, but I think they're way overprescribed. Keto Court says, what would be your top 5 budget carnivore meals trying to help someone on very low income? Well, at the very top of the list is just eggs. I have backyard chicken, so I have quality eggs, but even the cheaper eggs you buy in the store, that's the cheapest thing that you can eat on a carnivore diet. Pretty darn easy as far as a meal goes. And you say carnivore meals. I'm going to go with carnivore foods because I mean, you can't really create a meal too much from just animal-based foods except for the meat itself. So that would be number 1 as far as budget goes. I would also say pork rinds are probably relatively inexpensive and it gives people that crunch that they desire. So that would be on the list as well. So eggs and pork rinds, and you can mix and match any of these things together to make a meal if you wanted to. Obviously, if we're leaving dairy out of the situation, it becomes increasingly harder without just going to some meats. So I would say try to get the best meat that you can for the price. Usually sirloin steak is not real expensive. You could get one of those or a chuck steak or something like that. I would also say maybe a pot roast and then stick in the crock pot and let it simmer in its own juices for hours and hours and hours, and then it just melts like butter. I think that's enough kind of differences of foods. But the main thing is you got to realize when you eat these carnivore foods, you're not eating, 3 meals a day of them. You're going to have a meal and maybe a second meal, and then that's it for the day. So focus in on making sure the foods that you do eat have enough fat and protein to keep you satiated so you're not hungry. And I think that's going to be the key to making it sustainable. And plus, look at all the foods that you were going to buy if you're a junk food eater. You don't buy those things anymore. I did a cost analysis from my junk food days to my keto days, and eating keto, I spend about 1/3 the amount of money that I did when I had all that junk food. So it makes a big difference when you improve the nutrient density of your diet. But thank you for that question. I think I saw another one come over here on YouTube. Um, do you have a preference for prebiotic? So prebiotic or probiotic? So prebiotic, no, I don't, to answer all of those questions. So a prebiotic is a fiber that would go in to feed the gut microbiome. Probiotic is actually the microbiome itself that you would take ingested. I like a variety of things. I don't have a particular name brand that I'm married to on any of that. I just say try to get a good strand. If you go to, say, Vitamin Shop or one of those kind of places, make sure it's in the refrigerated section. If you're getting a probiotic, prebiotic tends to be like a fiber, and they usually can come in a pill. I know inulin is a popular prebiotic fiber that is used as a sweetener in a lot of things. There was a company called, I think they're still around, Choco Perfection, and the fiber that's in there is inulin and oligofructose, some really good kind of fibrous sweetener. That's how they sweetened the chocolate. So it was a chocolate bar. Go look them up, Choco Perfection. They were, fun fact about Jimmy Moore, they were my very first sponsor ever. So when I had my blog, the Living La Vida Low Carb blog, didn't even have a podcast yet. They approached me and they said, hey, we love what you're doing with Living La Vida Low Carb. How much would it cost to do a sponsorship? And I was like, oh no, I just started. Like, it was 6 months later. And I said, and they're like, we want to buy a sponsorship for a whole year. And I was like, whole year? And I was like, how about $200? And they were like, okay. Like, they didn't hesitate. I went, oh crap, I didn't ask for enough money. So then the year was up. She came back to me and she said, hey, that was an incredible year of sales. Thank you so much for promoting. I want to do it again for another year. And I was thinking, okay, she's real exuberant. Maybe it did really well. Like, I was still learning kind of business acumen at that point. And I'm going, okay. And she said very outright, she said, charge me a lot more than $200. I went, ooh. So she did well. Ooh. So I thought about it for about 15 minutes and I wrote her back and I said, I don't know, how about $2,000? And she came back within seconds and said, yep, I'll do that. I went, oh, I should have asked for more. But that was where I started learning to negotiate with people, and so now I've got it down to a pretty good science. I do a lot of business consulting with people all the time because they're like, how do you get sponsors? How do you negotiate? I got all the skills now, you guys, to do that. So if you're someone who is trying to get in that and trying to learn some of that, please reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk to you about how you can do that as well. All right. What do I think about kefir? Eat it. That's what I think about it. Been doing Wim Hof guided breathing once a day for the past week. Also cold showers. Do you have any breathing tips to help me fall asleep faster that I can do right before bed? Well, I mean, I wouldn't even like focus on the breathing per se. I think more than anything is set the room to have it be ready for you to sleep. I think people sleep too hot. I have my air conditioner on. I've talked about this before. 65 degrees when I go to bed. I have fans blowing. I've got an overhead fan and a fan under the air conditioner blowing the cold air towards me and a fan to the side. And you're thinking, okay, it's getting colder outside. Do you really want that? You want to be cool when you're sleeping because that does help you sleep deeper. You want it to be as dark as possible. So getting blackout curtains and making sure that it's as dark as possible. Some people do pretty good with like a sound machine, but don't worry about falling asleep fast. Just fall asleep gently. Yeah, to do all the things. Take magnesium 1 hour before bedtime. That helps you sleep. You're doing all the right things with Wim Hof and the cold showers. So just keep all those things up, and it will pay dividends over time. Don't rush the process. Whoa, that's a long question, Michael. If you will private message me that's a really long question. I'm out of time here on Jimmy Rant. So send me that through a message, and I'll be happy to answer that question for you. But guys, that's it. All the time we have today for this episode of Jimmy Rants Ask Me Anything. Thank you for your participation today. And thank you for being here today. That's it for this episode of Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website. Go follow me on here on Instagram. That is where the fun begins, at Living Low Carb Man, LIVINLOWCARBMAN. Once you're there, engage live in the content. We also go live over here over on Facebook as well as YouTube. Michael, if you will reach out to me through my Instagram page, that's what I check the most. And so go follow me over there at Living Low Carb Man, and then send me a DM, and I'll be happy to respond to you there. So thank you again for your question. If you missed the live, you can watch it on replay right here on IGTV, so check it out there. We also put the past episodes up over on YouTube. Type in a keyword, Jimmy Rants, you will find the show. And then finally, go to the official website for this show. It is JimmyRants.com. While you're there, you can see all the past episodes, but you can also show your support for my work here on Jimmy Rants. I really appreciate all of you guys that support me financially. So that's PayPal as well as the Patreon link. And all of those links, you guys, are at JimmyRants.com. Okay, you guys, have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you back again here Monday at 11 a.m. here on Jimmy Rants. Bye. All right. Done and done. Knock 'em out. So good. I love Fridays, guys. As if you couldn't tell. When I start singing, you know I'm almost done with my day. I do have an interview coming up at 1 o'clock. A really good friend of mine named Sarah Keogh. And she's got some information about sustainability, farming, and that kind of thing. She's an overcomer of some trauma herself. She had an eating disorder that she was able to overcome. I've interviewed her before, but the sustainability with the farming and everything has really got her jazzed now. So real excited to talk to her. But have a great weekend, Facebook. We'll see you guys on Monday. Bye. Bye, YouTube. Thank you so much for all your engagement today. We'll see you Monday. Coming in, peace.